Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by RacerX, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by RacerX, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by RacerX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nesler. Hey, before we dive into our guest, I want to tell you about RacerX's promotion they have going on right now. You can go to racerxonline.com/Moto Marketing, name of the show, and subscribe to win for a chance to win a set of Method wheels and Maxxis tires. Super simple. And actually, you get free event stickers as well. With that subscription, you get 12 print issues, 12 digital issues, access to the RacerX read-alouds, digital magazine archives, a lot of cool stuff. And obviously, if you win a set of Method wheels and Maxxis tires, it'd be well worth it. So, super cool. Speaking of Maxxis tires, our guest has worked with them a lot over the years. He's a Maxxis athlete. We have AJ Catanzaro on the podcast with us today, somebody that, man, I think we're 91 episodes into this, and AJ was one of the first guys I was like, he's a prime example of why I need to do this show, beyond businesses, athletes in the sport that are leveraging marketing themselves and building their personal brands to give themselves more of an opportunity in their career. AJ was the first guy to come to mind. 91 episodes later, I finally made it happen. I've gotten to know AJ a little bit over the last few months, working on some stuff together, and finally was like, hey, man, you want to come on? And we made it happen. So, AJ, welcome to the show, man. I'm sure nobody's a stranger to who you are, and I'm excited to have you tell your story today.
Thank you. And that's a huge compliment, by the way. It's crazy to, as I sit here and even listen to that introduction, it's crazy to think that that's maybe how I'm viewed by some nowadays, where I always had such a different vision of myself and a much more negative vision. But now I think that is starting to, or it has been changing over the last couple of years, which is really cool. I always looked at myself as like the underdog privateer and it was all like racing related, right? So I was never really confident in that sense. Yeah,
I think you've almost created a new model, and honestly, I'm sure look, I'll never be a Supercross or motocross athlete. I've grown up loving the sport, and I watch the amateurs as well, but I think you're probably the most, and for sure one of the most aspiring professionals out there, from somebody that is woke enough to know they're not going to be Barsha, they're not going to be Tomac, they're not going to be Aaron Plessinger, but is there a space for me? I think they look to guys like Jeff Walker and maybe Seven Deuce Deuce, but I think you're the one that you're not just surviving. You're, not to be corny and rhyme, you're thriving. Like you've made a business model, a viable business model out of what you're doing. You're an athlete, and we'll get into kind of Supercross, and you Supercross only, but then you, in my opinion, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, you don't make your money on the racetrack. Like, I think you still do it because you're passionate about it, you're competitive, but where you've made a lane for yourself is everything else. Like, you've got your vlogs, you've got your coaching, like you're as popular as some of the top name guys, and you're not always a main event guy. And I think that is inspiring to a lot of amateurs, because everybody wants to have a vlog and all these. I think people kind of see that there's an avenue for that. You and really Hayden Deegan are kind of carving something that I think is going to be the next version of this sport, or at least an option, in my opinion. So, what are your thoughts on that? Have you ever taken a step back and looked and been like, man, I've really created something new with what I'm doing?
Yeah, well, there's a lot to chew off there. Yes, I do take a step back frequently, and everything comes like a whirlwind, and there's a lot happening at once, especially right now. And it's not overnight. To me, it feels like a lot of it has happened almost overnight, but I've been working my entire life to make this work. I had people in my ear when I was 17, 18 years old, when I was fast and I could have been looked at as an upcoming, like somebody that really had something going for them in the future of the sport. But even then, everyone in my corner was, hey, this motocross stuff is cool and all, but what are you going to do in the future? I don't know. They obviously didn't envision what I have going now as an option. I think what they envisioned was more so like go to school and figure out a normal job. Right. But I think having that little bug in my ear that early was enough to open the door to at least thinking about things and thinking about, where would my niche be? Like, where do I fit in? What am I good at? I've always done really well in school. I've always been fairly articulate, although I do feel like there's certain things I'm self-conscious with articulating or talking face to face with people. Like, I feel like I'm just really picky about the way that I speak and the way that I look when I speak, which other people might not even notice that. Right.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I was hiring a speech coach and all of that just to help with that, because I have the camera in my face all the time now. And I just want to make sure that there's not things that I'm self-conscious about. But right from day one, when I was 16, 17 years old, even before that, I was always thinking of little ways that I could make money or be creative. And then obviously that snowballed into something much, much bigger. But on the topic of the forefront of what is going to be the future, like I said, there's a lot to bite off on this, because I could talk for hours and hours about this topic. But I think that the Deegans have it figured out. I think Brian is very, very smart, and he understands how big just that YouTube channel alone is. Yeah. Think about why a manufacturer or why a sponsor, why is somebody sponsoring a rider? They sponsor them to ultimately sell the product. Right. And the old school way of doing that was by winning races. Yep. You win races on Sunday, you sell bikes Monday, whatever that saying was. Does that still work? Sure. But I think arguably an even more effective way of doing that is alternative methods, the YouTube, and just being in front of all those eyes, especially in my situation. Not only do I have the platform that I've built, but that platform speaks directly to the consumer, because I'm teaching classes and I'm teaching tutorial videos on how to ride the motorcycles that these manufacturers are selling. Yeah. So saying this as unbiased as possible, that is the most value that you could create to a manufacturer or to a sponsor in the motocross industry, I would think, right? Results completely aside. So there's still a lot of people in this industry that haven't caught on, or maybe don't want to catch on just yet, and they're stuck in that kind of win races on Sunday, sell bikes on Monday vision.
It's what was important. I mean, I think when we started to see it transition out was kind of with the Carmichael Reed era, to where like those guys weren't paid a dime because of their social following. It was because they won races, and then you literally never heard from them again until the next weekend, where it's different now, and people are doing it at different levels, to where I think he does a great job with it, Dean Wilson, and people refer to him all the time as like the guy on social media that does it well, and I think he does a really good job for one of the bigger name riders that shows his personal side. But then when you look at someone like you and someone like Jeff Walker, you guys do it so much better, and from a fan's perspective, and me being that fan, because you guys are putting out consistent content, you're putting out a lot, you've found a way to make a living. Because my opinion, I say this, I mean, with what my company does, for those that don't know, I mean, we do digital marketing. So like one of my, part of my elevator pitch is we help clients get attention and turn that into revenue. Well, before it was win the Supercross or the Motocross race, and that's going to help us sell bikes. Now your business model is you get attention, you help your sponsors with that attention, but you've also set this unique business model up to where you get attention and you turn it into revenue for yourself and your wife via your coaching and your clinics and just your personal brand. That to me is what's unique. Like you found a way to find the support of your sponsors. And that's kind of where that stops with other riders. Like 7 Deuce Deuce, he has, in my opinion, the Twisted Tea ride because he's 7 Deuce Deuce, not because he's the fastest guy. He's a main event guy. But it stops with he gets support of his sponsors. You, in my opinion, you found a way to build that awareness, turn that into sponsorship support. But you've created this another level to where you're not just selling merch. You've got this business that you're also turning that attention into revenue for. That, I think, in a long-winded way, is what I think is so unique and special about you that I hope other people figure out down the road.
Thank you.
What are your
I
thoughts
also
on
think
that?
I'm lucky. I think I'm lucky with that, right? That's very, very difficult to do, even on Deegan's end, other than being famous.
Yeah.
What exactly is his lane? It's being fast on a dirt bike, and it's going to be just being a creator on YouTube, which is great. I think I've just been lucky that I was really good at being able to articulate and explain how to ride a dirt bike, which just so happens to be what I'm also good at doing, is riding dirt bikes. So, and what people want to watch me do on YouTube is ride dirt bikes. So it all just kind of made sense. And the timing is great. I don't really believe in luck necessarily, but there were a few like key factors, and the timing has been so critical on some of these. I wouldn't have been able to do this 15 years ago. Sure. I wouldn't have been able to do this 10 years ago. I don't think. Just where technology is, we just released our app yesterday. Like the fact that I have an app is pretty unbelievable, right? And you guys are helping push that now with your business. And the timing of it is crazy. But at the same time, like I said, I've been working at this for years, and I had a vision when I was 19 years old of what I wanted to look like. Did I believe that it was possible? No, not really. But I did kind of have a vision of what I could turn it into. Yeah. The only regret that I have is that I didn't do the YouTube thing earlier.
Yeah. I feel like anybody that's ever had success with anything probably has that same regret with whatever it is. Like, man, if I would have just done this 6 months earlier or whatever. Like there's always the what if, but it's
not too late.
No.
For those watching and the riders.
Is it too late now to start a YouTube channel when
no.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it harder? Yeah.
Sure.
Every day you wait, it's a little bit harder. The barrier to entry is a little bit higher. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. I would recommend that every single motocross rider, I don't care how slow, how fast, if you're the top factory guy or if you're a privateer that's finishing last place in the main event, it doesn't matter. Create a channel. You can then build your brand, whatever that looks like, right? For me, it is motocross instructing. It's kind of not goody two shoes, but like I don't swear on my channel. I have a couple like quirks that like people like, and I'm my personality on my brand. It's very specific, and I've built that intentionally. It wasn't by accident. And anyone could do that. You have Buttery Films, which he has his thing. His direction. I don't know necessarily where he's planning on going with some of that, but he has his specific things too.
Yeah.
It all has so much value. And then taking that to the next level, you create your YouTube channel, right? Which is youtube.com/AJ Catanzaro. And then the next step beyond that is creating truly your own platform, which I've done with the Moto Academy. So the Moto Academy is now where I hold all of my tutorial footage. I have exclusive content that just lies within the Moto Academy. People can send the riding footage directly through the Moto Academy for me to analyze within the app, all of that. So I've built the YouTube channel so I have that audience, and I grow that big audience as big as possible. Right now I only have 80,000 subscribers, but the engagement on that 80,000 is very high. And the goal is to grow that as high as possible. So let's say the goal with that is 1 million. Then you create your own platform, not youtube.com/AJ Catanzaro. I've created the motoacademy.com. I've now created my own app. Now the goal is to funnel as many of those 80,000 people
Yeah.
Or let's say I get that to 1 million, that would be the goal. When I get that to 1 million, funnel as many of those 1 million people as possible inside of the Moto Academy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the business that lives on until I retire.
Yeah.
And beyond that.
Yeah. It's, I mean, for those listening, like what AJ just spelled out is like what goes through the minds of the people that work for me. We call that a marketing funnel. Like, how do I get top of funnel to bottom of funnel? And literally, it's exactly what you kind of envision. Like, top of funnel, it's really wide. There's a lot of people in it. Bottom of funnel, a lot smaller amount of whatever starts to drip out. Well, that's the customer. And AJ, that's kind of what you just explained, which again is why, like, not to sit here and just blow smoke up your butt the whole time, but it's like there's not that many moto athletes that think that way as far as like, how can I get the attention and how can I funnel this down to where I have a place for people to buy into my program or my product. And I think a lot of people probably struggle with, well, what is my program or my product? Like, I do to this day with this show. Like, I don't get paid $1 for this show. I do it because I'm passionate about it. We're almost 100 episodes in. I've met a lot of really cool people. Yes, some of them have become clients. Thank you. I appreciate that. But like, I still struggle. Like, my moneymaker is this ad agency, but I like, how can I take the Moto Marketing Podcast or, the Business of Moto project and like turn that into a thing? And I think a lot of moto athletes that might have this following, I'll use Jeff Walker. Jeff was one of my first guests on the show, and he's done a really cool thing. Like, he is the epitome of a box man privateer. I'm sure he wonders, like, how can I make this thing more? And that's really what you've done with your platform, and that's what business gurus do, like Grant Cardone and Gary Vaynerchuk, all these guys that you follow on their YouTube channel. You eventually get funneled into their thing. Has that been, I heard you talk about this the first time a couple years ago on podcasts that you do or used to do, and you talked about this, like, I want there to be the thing beyond YouTube. When did that start to become like your idea of, okay, I've got this following, let's do something with it beyond coaching kids at the racetrack?
So the catalyst to that was basically when I reached the height of the physical academies, the classes that I was going around the country teaching. I sat down with my wife 6 months ago. We were sitting on our patio outside, and she's a financial advisor. And she goes, we're sitting at the fire. She goes, AJ, how much money do you make? And I was like, you know what? I have no idea. And she's like, what do you mean you have no idea? I'm like, I couldn't guess within 6 figures how much money I make a year. I have no freaking idea. I don't know if I make 80 grand. I don't know if I make 580 grand.
That's wild.
And she's like, obviously this is an issue. So she goes through, we pulled up the calendar. And we were able to calculate fairly close, pulling up the last 4 or 5 months, what I was making per month. And then she goes, well, what is your dream amount per month? If you can make that amount, you've made it. You feel like that's all that you'd be satisfied. I will say my amount since then has changed a lot, but I gave her an amount, and she goes, once she finished calculating, she said, AJ, you've been doubling that for the last 5 months and you've had no idea. And my first reaction to that was 1 second of me thinking, whoa, that's cool. But that was 1 second. And then my mind immediately went to, Allie, this is not sustainable. It's not. I'm on a plane 5 days a week. I'm teaching 5 classes a week. Mm-hmm. I can't continue to do this. When are we going to have a kid? We can't have a kid if I'm doing this, So I didn't know. Going to bed that night, I put it out into the universe. I'm like, okay. And I wrote it in my phone. I said, I need to figure out a way to make this level of income or more and not have to physically be there. I'm like, how can I not physically be there, but be a motocross instructor? I woke up the next morning, saw a podcast from Logan Paul, and he had a guest on named Chase Hero, who Chase runs a company called Subify that creates basically fan platforms for creators. They created the Maverick Club, which originally was for Logan Paul, and then they realized how successful that business model was, and they brought it on with a bunch of other high-level creators. Steve Aoki, I think actually Haley Deegan has one now. They have a lot of high-profile people. at the time they only had maybe 6 or 7, and they were all very high profile, like levels and levels above me. And I'm like, I'm watching the podcast the very next morning after we had that conversation. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, if I could get in touch with this guy to create my platform, I go, a subscription-based model like that, this is the answer. This is, I did the quick math on my phone. I'm like, at whatever dollars a month, if I get this many subscribers, I'll never have to work a day again in my life. And the step one was getting in touch with them. So which was impossible. I sent email after email to subify.com. They're so limited on their resources right now and their creators that they don't accept anybody. So I didn't even get a response. And then I sent a message to the Chase Hero guy who was on the podcast, sent him a message, this long-winded message explaining why I think I would be good for the platform and how our partnership could work. It never said seen. So I copied it, unsent it, because you can unsend things on Instagram, sent it again. Waited 2 or 3 days, nothing. Did it again. Waited 2 or 3 days, nothing. I did this over and over for probably 45 days, maybe even 2 months.
Wow.
And finally it said seen. And when it said seen, I'm like, oh, this is like, no way. He saw it. And I watched it said seen, like he was right in real time. The green dot was up in the corner. He was on, he read it as I was sitting there watching him read it. And then the 3 dots pop up. I'm like, oh, no way. He's texting back. So he direct messages back. And right away he goes, hey, I quickly looked into you. I think that this could actually make sense. He is like a big dirt bike fan himself.
Wow.
We got on a Zoom call that night, and then we kind of, the rest was history, the last 6 months or however long creating this with them. So I always knew that I was capped, and I didn't like that. I was one person. I could only be so many places in a year. 365 days, I was limited to X amount of races. I was limited to X amount of classes. And I knew the dollar amount that was the maximum. And I wasn't satisfied with that because I didn't like the fact that I could work as hard as I was. And then that the end goal was just that I reach this number that I could already see.
Right.
And I thought that was kind of depressing. And not to mention a lot of work. So now that we have the subscription platform created and all of the work that we've already put into it in the last 6 months, and I'm first to market with it, and the partnerships that we have coming in the next 2 months, not to toot my own horn, it's going to completely change.
Yeah.
It's going to be game changing.
It's going to be exciting
I'm very,
to see.
very, very, very lucky to have timed getting in touch with him. Although I sent him 30 messages, who does that? Like, I was so determined to make it happen. I made it happen. And now having the partnership that I have and the alignment and the timing of this partnership coming, it feels like a little bit like luck, but it's all happening at the perfect time.
Yeah. There's something about, you guys are very different, but at the same time, you and Jason Thomas, you and JT remind me a lot. You have a lot of the same characteristics and traits. Like, a lot of the moto guys, like, they're the most badass athletes on the planet, but a lot of them could never do what JT has done with his professional career. And what you're doing while still being a professional, like doing it now, like you guys have this, it's business acumen. Like I can shorten it up. I'm long-winded at times. It is what it is. You guys have this business acumen while being like top level athletes, like fastest guys in the world on 2 wheels. That I think is rare. Something that maybe JT just didn't have the passion to do, but like you've figured out a way to tap into that business acumen as you're still an athlete and build something. And I think, in my opinion, the only thing that you've gotten lucky on is like the timing of it all. Carmichael, JT, Nick Way, these guys could not have done this when they were still relevant in the sport. I think where you have gotten lucky, if anything, it's just the fact that you're still a relevant athlete. Even though you might be at the tail end of your career, just age-wise, you're still very relevant in the sport in 2021, 2022. I think that is something that's played into your favor. Something that you've done, and I think you know this, but I had Cam on the podcast this Supercross season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen to that. That was a good podcast. Thank you for having him on, by the way.
Yeah, man, well, thank you for letting him come on, or I appreciate him coming on. Like, I got started in this world as a video producer. I wanted to shoot, I wanted to be the next guy that made the motocross movies and all this stuff, and I realized, okay, that's not going to happen, but I can make a business out of it. So I've got this, like, soft spot in my heart for Cam, because what Cam is doing at a young age, similar to how I got into this space, like I bugged the hell out of Davey Coombs and Tim Cotter and Kerry Coombs, and finally I built this relationship with him. So I saw what he was doing, and I heard his story about how you guys got together. And I was like, man, and honestly, I thought he was way older than he is. He's just so professional and well-spoken. I didn't realize he's, what is he, 21 or 20 or something like that? I thought he was like
21,
20. Yeah, I thought he was like almost 30. What I'm getting at is you guys this year, I feel, made this whole new business model, right? A new media model that I've seen other people doing more of since Cam came on board. And it is going from a vlog, which is a true vlog is you're filming yourself, to I don't have time for that, but I understand the importance. Let me tap into somebody that wants to get in the sport, give them an opportunity. They can help me while I help them. And man, you found a hell of a guy, because his stuff is nobody else in the sport that is doing this. His is on the level of Wes Williams and all those guys, but he's making vlogs for a rider. Did you see a monumental shift, both in like your productivity, being able to do your thing and know that this guy's got it, and just growth because of the amount of content you guys were pumping out was astronomical? What did you see from that?
Yeah, that was the key. And that was perfect timing as well, right? But I knew that was the natural next step. It's just hard. And I think that's where a lot of people get hung up, is that the YouTube doesn't create a lot of revenue right off the bat. Even now, I'm lucky if I clear 10 grand a month on YouTube. And every dollar of that I'm paying Cam.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
somebody just fell out of their chair when they're like, wait a minute, I can make $10,000 a month on YouTube. But I understand, like, it's all things considered.
But it takes a while to get there.
For sure.
First of all, 10 grand a month. Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at that the wrong way. I mean,
but it goes back into the business. I think that's the thing. Like, it ain't money necessarily in AJ's pocket. Like, you're reinvesting it. So
every dime. And right from the beginning, I was doing that. I remember right when my YouTube reached like monetization levels, and it was clearing $200 a month. And then all of a sudden it was like $600 a month. I remember I went from my iPhone, and then I got a Canon G7X, which was like a little point and shoot, like a $700 camera, right? It did enough to like, it was that natural next step. I got this little crappy Rode microphone for it. And then I went out and bought a Panasonic GH5, which is like a few $1,000 camera. And now I have a pretty good mic setup for that. And then I got the message from Cam, and I knew that was the next step, but it's a lot of money. Not only are you hiring a film guy and paying him per video, but you're also having to pay them for their travel. So the expenses, go up huge overnight, but I knew I needed it. So I pulled the trigger and we made that happen. We did all last Supercross season. He's been with me basically all summer. The only times he's not with me is when he's editing a bunch of stuff, and he's got to take a week to just kind of stay at home and edit for me. That unlocks a whole different level. When you can that's the hard part, is getting to that point and not giving up on YouTube before you get to that point.
Yep.
Once you get to the point where you can create enough revenue to hire a full-time film guy, that unlocks everything. And Cam is the awesome person. He's a great person for it, because he can create a cinematic masterpiece, like the hot rod video we did, which was like a 10-minute or however long, like it was a movie, right? He has the red, he has all the good equipment, but with that, he can bust out these vlogs like nobody's business, just really quick. And he's been able to teach me how to do it the right way myself. So when I am traveling without him, I can put out content that looks equally as good as some of his stuff, me just doing it myself, where before I had no freaking idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
I still don't, but now at least I have some of his guidance.
Yeah.
And but in all of these things, I keep saying luck, but I think that's just me that's just being humble about it. I'm very intentional. Every single thing that I've done has been for a reason. A lot of it didn't work, right? But the things that have worked have just created this path of like, in this trajectory of it's all coming together. Finally.
Yeah.
I'm 28 years old. I've worked for so long to like a couple steps up, down, a couple steps up, down. And it was like, geez, Louise, can anybody make a living in this darn sport? It was so frustrating. And it's finally at the point where I can see the light of day and I'm like, oh, finally, you know,
yeah,
I made it in a sense. And it's like, now I have the confidence and now I have the momentum, just all around momentum to like really, really take this thing to the next level. Yeah. And the financial freedom, you know, it's created the ability for me to have the money to dump that back into whatever I feel the need to dump it back into. And then to take the time, like this winter, I'm going to be training with Jet Lawrence and Cooper Webb and Hunter Lawrence in Florida. I'm going to take December through May to not train anybody, to just focus on myself. I'll probably be working with those guys on the bike a little bit. But I'm going to be training myself. I haven't done that since 2013.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually going to be a question of mine that I was going back and forth in my head. I'm like, do I even go there with AJ on this topic or not? It was going to be like, is it still something that is like a burning desire and passion of yours to get back to where I think everybody knows you can be and where you want to be as far as being a main event guy? I know this past year was hard for you because business in a way got in the way of your results, but that's what your focus is. So it sounds like you've got this set up to where it's on autopilot enough that for a period of time that, like you said, you can focus on yourself. So clearly that's still a passion of yours, which is to perform and make main events, and you're going to make that happen this year from the sounds of it.
Yeah. And again, the timing is perfect. I had this vision in 2014 was the last year I really went at it head on. I had a couple top fives in Supercross. I was top 10 in points. I was pretty fast. I think I always had a lot of mental hangups when it came to racing, but I had good technique. I was always fit, and I was quick enough, right? Top fives is cool. Top 10s are great. And 2015 is when I created what was originally AJ Catanzaro Moto Academy, which is now the Moto Academy. And I had to make that conscious decision of, okay, I need to dedicate more time to the business for however many years until I can see this thing through.
Yeah. And
naturally the racing is going to have to suffer for a little bit.
Yep.
You cannot be a high level professional athlete and give it 70% or 80% or 60%. You cannot. You have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. Everything you do has to revolve around just riding a dirt bike.
Yeah.
So I knew that 2015, 16, all the way through last year, those were a lot of years to kind of be half-assing my racing efforts and knowing that I would all along kind of people would be writing me off. But first of all, I knew that it was important for a relevance factor to continue to teach, to at least say, hey, like I raced professional Supercross, right? I didn't want to drop off the map just yet, but also I love racing. I don't care what place I get. I don't care if I don't make a main event. I just like showing up and being able to race and ride a Supercross track. I have so much fun riding Supercross. I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's scary a lot of the time, but I love doing it.
Yeah.
And I had a vision a couple of years ago. I'm like, man, I would always talk to my buddies. I'm like, because I could start to see the light of the day with the business end. And I would say, man, what if I could get the Moto Academy to the point where it was like firing on all cylinders and everybody knew what the Moto Academy was, and it was like looked at as like a high level business. And simultaneously I could then take the time in my late 20s to like train again and be fast again. And then all at once, like have all of that happen at the same time. And I don't want to speak too soon, but I feel like this is the year where that could happen. I'm 28, which in a lot of people's eyes like is old for a motocrosser, but knock on wood, I haven't been hurt that much. I never got hurt that often because I always rode really slow and just my technique was always pretty good. There's no reason I can't come into my stride and be the best that I've ever been these next few years.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I could go out and I could not race at all at this point and I think be fine with what I've established. But I have, like you said, I have that burning desire to, at this point now, prove everybody wrong. But also I just like doing it. And if I'm prepared and I put that time aside in these next few months to train with Cooper Webb and Jet Lawrence and Hunter Lawrence and those guys,
yeah,
how could I not be the fastest that I've ever been?
Yeah, no doubt. Man, it's just knowing what you have going on and what's coming has got me excited. But then hearing that has as well, because I mean, I enjoy watching the guys top of the sport during the race. But I equally, if not more, I enjoy the behind the scene look at Amart and you and all these guys that, and the Craig family that put these vlogs out. Like, I enjoy that aspect of each week as much as I enjoy the racing. It'd be really cool to see you be able to have your videos and the excitement of
create a cool storyline.
Yeah, of you coming back and making these these main events. Is that something you're going to continue with in 21 or 22 rather with Cam? Do you think he'll be back?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, he does. Man, it was cool at the beginning of the season to see on his personal vlogs his just like starstruckness and his awe of like, oh my God, there goes Eli Tomac. And then by the end of the season, he's like hanging out with Jet and like
but he's still like that.
Yes,
which is cool because I like that too.
That was so cool to see
because I'm like that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm a fan of it, and I like being surrounded by people that really appreciate every little detail like that.
Yeah.
And not somebody that comes in and quickly becomes jaded and thinks they're too cool and doesn't outwardly express like their appreciation or just how cool it is, everything that we're doing. And every time we go and do something, Cam is the first person to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Oh my God, do you see who that is over there? And I don't know. I find that cool and it gets me excited.
Yeah,
again.
No doubt. I feel like in a sport to where there's not that much personality. I mean, I don't have anything against the guy, but you look at someone like Cooper Webb. I mean, he shows zero emotion ever. I think it's cool to see you get excited about things, people in your corner like Cam get excited. Like, it's cool. Like, this is fun. Like, we don't work in a law firm. Like, you're a professional athlete. It's fun. Like, I own a marketing company. Yes, I have payroll and all this overhead, but damn it, I work with, it's 1:00 on a Wednesday and I'm talking to a Supercross athlete. Like, this stuff's supposed to be fun. I think it's cool when people show that personality, and I don't think it's done enough. So, AJ, I've kept you long enough. We were talking before the show. You're like 3 hours from our studio and our office. So we're going to try to make it happen sometime where we can get you to come in. There's so much more we can dive into. I've had to hold back on multiple things today because we could go for 3 hours. So we'll get you in studio and do another episode hopefully before Supercross starts.
Yeah, we'll do something long format.
Yeah,
because there's three things that are very, 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 very exciting that hopefully next time I talk to you, I'll be able to tell everybody about.
Yep.
But then, yeah, you and I can shoot the shit on a bunch of different stuff, and we'll do something long format. I'll drive to you, so I'm in studio. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure. Well, man, just so when this will come out next week. Actually, your buddy Dave Drake's is this week's episode. Yours will come out the week of the 27th. So knowing that, where can people find more information about you that might be living under a rock and are really kind of discovering what you got going on for the first time? Where's a good place for them to link up with you?
Yeah, go to the motoacademy.com. You can join the club and be a part of the club, or you can just click tour and see where my tour dates are and see where the classes will be, or just type in AJ Catanzaro on YouTube and start watching some of the videos. We got a lot of stuff up on YouTube. I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, which is a ton of work, but we're consistent with it.
That's awesome.
So yeah, check us out on YouTube and then go to the motoacademy.com.
Awesome. Well, man, it was awesome to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to next time we chat and getting you in the studio. And we'll be in touch soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Luke. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impact Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpact.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.